All right, it is May 1st, so that means that it is time for me to do my monthly wrap up of the books that I read in April. From this point going forward, I think I'm going to do a weekly wrap up instead of a monthly wrap up. That way, the video is not as long as this one because this video is long. I'm going to try to not say as much, so please bear with me. You already see how long the video is. I know how long it is because I spent all day yesterday filming just for my audio to be corrupted, so I couldn't use any of that. So now here I am refilming it, which is a little heartbreaking for me, but it is what it is and I cannot change that. I do, however, want to preface this video with a disclaimer. All of the books that I will be talking about, minus 4 books, are for an audience of 18 years and older. So if you somehow have stumbled across this video and you are under the age of 18, A, click off. B, you can stick around. But if you go to read these books and you get caught by your parent or your guardian, do not send them my way and be like, this woman told me to read it. Because here's a disclaimer once again, I did not. If you want to read these books, you really need to ask a parent or a guardian for permission. You know your parents, you know how they raise you, and you know whether they would be mad if you read books like this. So do not send them my way because it will not go well for you because there is a disclaimer on this video. Anyways, that's all it. I'm going to stop rambling and let's talk about some books. All right, I have my book journal here. That way I can remember some stuff that I wrote down and what I rated the books. And we're going to jump straight into it with the first book that I read this month. It is Kill Switch by Penelope Douglas. This is the 3rd book in her Devil's Knot series, and I will tell you if these books are available on Kindle Unlimited or if they're not. This book is available in Kindle Unlimited. The whole series is. This is a dark romance, so check the trigger warnings and take them seriously. This will not be the first time that I say this or the last time that I say this. Actually, this is the first time I'm saying it, but it won't be the last time I'm saying this throughout the video. Your mental health matters more than any book, TV show, song, or what anyone else thinks. So if you read the trigger warnings and there is something in there that is sensitive to you, do not read it. Kill Switch is a second chance enemies to lovers, and it follows Damon and Winter. Damon has spent the last 3 years of his life in prison for a crime that technically he did commit, but technically he did not commit. And now that he's out, there's 2 things he wants. He wants to get his friendship back with his friends, and he wants revenge on a girl named Winter and her family. Now, in order to get his revenge, he marries the older sister, Winter's older sister, because their father has fled the country due to financial reasons and left them vulnerable, I guess. Yeah, we'll say that. So Damon marries Winter's older sister, but she is not the one that he wants romantically or the one that technically he wants revenge on. He's saving that for Winter. But now he owns their home. He is in control of their financial situation. And he basically has all 3 women, their mother, Winter, and her sister, under his thumb. And he's planning on getting his revenge. Now, Winter, she is a strong-willed, independent girl, and she is not about to bow down to Damon. She does not like him, even though she does like him, if that makes sense. She's torn in half. There's part of her that is attracted to him and their past, and then there is the other half of her who just cannot stand him. The one thing that you need to know about Winter that plays a huge part in her story is that she is blind, but she does not see that as a disability, and really neither does Damien. So this book follows, of course, their romance and him getting his revenge, but it also follows him trying to take down his father and his father's business. Sorry, I have something in my eye. But anyways, on to what I thought about this book and what I rated this book, while I still get something out of my eye. For plot, I gave this a 5, and for spice, I gave this a 5. Now, was Damon Torres a bad person? Yes, he is. Does he react to things the wrong way and without thinking? Yes, he does. Do I care? No, I do not. I did not like Damon in the first book of the series. I started to like him in the second book of the series, and then by the time I got to his book, I was in love with him. I looked past his bad doings, what he did wrong, and how he acted because of the storyline and how his life was growing up. I hate saying that villains are misunderstood, but Damon is very misunderstood. He's had a hard life, and it has hardened him as an adult. Now, Winter, I love how she takes no crap from no one, and even though she is blind, she doesn't let that slow her down. She doesn't see that as a disability, and neither does Damon, like I said before. The one thing I want to talk about is towards the end of the book, I honestly thought that Damon was going to go find the best surgeon in the world to give Winter her eyesight back, and I wanted that for her because she'd been through so much, and I just wanted her to be able to see the world like the rest of us. But he didn't do it, and that's when I realized that neither one of them saw it as a disability or saw it as something that needed to be fixed. Winter loved herself, and she loved, I don't want to say she loved the fact that she was blind, but she had taught herself how to see the world differently, and she did. And Damon loved Winter regardless of the fact that she was blind, and he didn't think that that was something that he needed to change. And that's what I like in books, is that the main couples, they don't want to change anything about the other person. And you find that a lot in books, but I've read some books where that's not the case. But that is what I loved the most about this book, is that even though he hated her, he wanted his revenge, he secretly loved her and would do anything for her. Okay, up next, I jumped to reading to my Kindle app, and I read Conclave by Penelope Douglas. Now, this is not in KU. It is a novella, and I had to buy it. Now, this novella comes right after Killswitch and before the next book, Nightfall. Me personally, I don't think you have to read this in order to understand the series. Let me tell you what it's about, and then I'll discuss that more. This is, like I said, it's a very short novella, and it follows Michael from Corrupt and his fiance. It follows Kai from Hideaway and his girlfriend. Maybe she's his wife by now. And then it follows Damon and Winter. And then there's also a fourth couple, and it's one of Kai's friends. I just can't remember her name. And they all go onto this boat to have a conclave, which means that there's issues that need to be worked out between different people on the boat. So they get on this boat and they drive out into the middle of the ocean to where nobody can leave unless you jump in until they all have worked out their issues. It sets up the fourth book of the Devil's Night series, which I believe is called Nightfall, and that's Will's story. Now, what did I rate this? I rated this a 4 for plot and a 3 for spice. Now, when I say I don't think that you have to read this, it's because we really didn't learn anything new that adds to the story. We got a little bit of a preview of what's to come in Will's book, and that's why I read this novella, is because I wanted to get that little bit of a preview into Will's story, and I just wanted to see more of Damon and Kai. I didn't necessarily like the novella because the main issue that they need the conclave for revolves around Michael and his fiance. And like I said, Michael is from Corrupt. That's the first book, and I did not like Mike. I don't want to say a whole lot because I don't like talking about books that I really don't like. I don't like his character. I hate seeing him in the other two books. I hated seeing him in Kai's book, and I hated seeing him in Damon's book. But it's something that I'm going to have to get over because they're all friends, and basically they're all family. So I've got to get over that. I did love the other scenes where it was from Damon and Winter's point of view. Just didn't like the whole Michael thing. So, once again, you do not have to read this novella, but if you want to, it is out there. It's just not on KU. After reading them first two dark romances, I needed something sweet, cute, fluffy, and I found this book, Wrapped Up in You by Nikki Ash. This is a small town, single mom, slow burn, sort of slow burn romance. And this follows Kelsey and Pierce. Now, Kelsey is a single mom to a girl named Jordan, but at one point in her life, she wasn't a single mom. Her, Jordan, and Kelsey's fiance, I cannot remember his name, lived in a house that unfortunately caught on fire. Kelsey and Jordan almost perished in the fire, but they was rescued. But Kelsey's fiance did not make it out. He sadly passed away in the house fire. She moved in with his parents, and they are not the best people in the world. So after living there for a couple of years, Kelsey has had enough of their antics and the way that they treat her. So her and Jordan pick a random town on a map, and they move out. Now, Kelsey, of course, is down on her luck. She's a single mom. She's working her butt off, but she's barely making ends meet. She goes to the grocery store where she cannot afford all of her groceries, and a young, nice, handsome gentleman behind her pays for her groceries. Well, Kelsey and Jordan find out that he is a local firefighter by the name of Pierce, and to pay him back, they take him a piece of chocolate cake. And as soon as Pierce sees them, he wants them, he wants to take care of them, he wants to give them everything that they ever want or need. And we see Kelsey struggle with not only asking for help but accepting the help, and then she struggles with her feelings towards Pierce because he is a firefighter, and of course, due to her past and her trauma, she's scared of fires. So what did I rate this? I rated this a 4 for plot and a 3 for spice. Now, this is insta love at its finest. Pierce sees her, they go on, I believe, one date, and he is instantly talking, I'm in love, I'm going to marry her, I want babies. So if you do not like insta love, I would stay away from this book. I, however, do not have a problem with insta love. That being said, sometimes the plot was unbelievable. It made you remember that you're reading a fictional book just because of how fast-paced it was. I loved watching Kelsey learn how to accept help, and I loved watching Pierce be able to dote on them and give them everything that they wanted and they needed. And Jordan broke my heart because this little girl just wanted a daddy like the rest of the people in her class. But like I said, this is on KU, so it is free to read. And then I jumped into a fantasy series. Now, this series needs a little bit of explaining here at the beginning. It is a 4-book series, and you definitely should start with book 1 because there is an overall plot that starts in book 1 and it does not finish until book 4. Now, did I do that? No, I did not. I'm going to show them to you in the order that I read them. And I started off with book 2 because it's the book that I have. It is The Broken Elf King by Leah Stone, and the name of this series is the King of Avalar series. This book follows the elf king Rafe, who when he was younger, he watched his mother and father and multiple brothers and sisters pass away from a poison that had no taste and no smell, and he was the only one left alive, and the poison was put in his food. When he became king with a council, and this council has been pushing him for a little while to get married, and they will not approve the war with the human queen. Now, talking about the human queen, the realm is separated into 2 parts, the human realm and the magical realm. The queen over the human realm hates anything and everything magical. So that is what the big plot is. The big plot is the war with the human queen. Now, the female in this book is named Kalani. She is half elf, half human, and she was raised in the human world by her aunt after the death of her parent. She is sold into slavery because she owes a debt to a chemist for medicine for her aunt. She is en route to the castle to be sold to the palace to work for the king. When they get there, she is groped by the slave handler, and Kalani puts the slave handler in his place. She beats him up, basically, which gets the attention of Rafe. And he decides to not offer her a maid job, but to offer her his personal assistant job because he needs a new one, because his personal assistant is also his food tester. They have to eat any and all food before he eats it. And of course, if it is poisoned, his magical power is healing people, but because he cannot taste or smell the poison, he cannot pull it from their body enough to where they start to heal without killing himself. So he goes through a lot of food testers, and he needs someone who can protect not only themselves but can protect him and to taste his food, and he sees that in Kalani. Also, he needs Kalani to help him find a wife. They have a list of eligible elf females in the community, and it is her job to help him find a wife. Of course, they don't find one that fits Rafe, and which brings me to the tropes. The tropes are fake dating and fake marriage. Him and Kalani decide to fake date and eventually marry. That way he can go to war with the queen, the human queen, and get the council off his back. What did I rate this book? I rated this book a 4.5 in plot and a 1.5 in spice. This is a series, and the 4 books that I said, I believe if you're of the age of 16 to 17, you can read it. But once again, you are a minor, so you need to talk to your parents. You know what they would like you to read, what they wouldn't want you to read. You're being raised by them. Do the right thing. I'll leave it at that. Now, Miss Stone writes her female characters as, I'm trying not to cuss, as powerful, strong fighters. They're not the type of people to sit back and let the men do everything and protect them. They can take care of themselves. And because she is such a strong female writer, we get the books from the female's point of view. We only get one chapter from the male's point of view. And while I love having both main characters' points of view, I wasn't craving the other side with these books because I loved the females. I love watching the friendship blossom between Rafe and Kalani because they get along, and then of course feelings start evolving, and then we get to watch it go into romance. I will say that it hints at a found family because there's 4 books with 4 kings, and all 4 of these kings were childhood friends. They just grew apart, things happen, and their friendship kind of fades. Now, like I said, because of the overall plot, the book ends on a cliffhanger. Not a cliffhanger for the couple. The couple is wrapped up nicely, but a cliffhanger for that overall plot, which makes you want to dive straight into book 3. So I jumped straight into book 3, which is The Ruthless Fae. This follows Lucien and Madeline. Lucien is, of course, the Fae King, and the Fae realm is split up into 4 different parts. We have spring, summer, fall, and winter. Lucien is the king of winter. His magic is over ice, snow, the cold. When he became king at a young age, he accidentally sent out a great freeze across the land, and it killed a bunch of people, especially in spring and summer, as they were not used to the cold. There were circumstances around the Great Freeze that I can't talk about because it will spoil the plot of the book, but let's just say that people don't like him. And he's called the Ruthless Fae King because of the rumors that are circulating throughout all the kingdoms about how he treats people who backtalk him, about people who serve him the wrong food, and just that he's a horrible person. So when Lucien goes to the king of the Fall Court and pays for the king's daughter Madeline's hand in marriage, Madeline is not excited to be married off to the ruthless Fae King. She knew that an arranged marriage was coming. She doesn't want to be married to him. But she decides to go ahead and agree to it because really there's nothing she can do about it. The first third of the book, now let me back up. Madeline is a very powerful fae. She can control the wind, and her powers are very strong. She can rip trees up out of the roots. She can bend them. She is once again a very powerful female, and I absolutely love that. Now, the first third of the book is spent on their engagement tour throughout all of the other realms, all the other summer, spring, and fall, and then of course they end in winter. The second third of the book is when Madeline gets kidnapped. Now by this point, Madeline and Lucien have feelings for each other, but she gets kidnapped by somebody else. And then the last third of the book is, of course, rescuing Madeline and the Fae King's fight with the Human Queen. That is something that is in all of the books. Towards the end, each king has a showdown with the queen. Now, because this is the third book, the showdown is bigger because we're getting to the end, and that cliffhanger that it ends on is huger because it's so close to the end. Now, what did I rate this book? I rated this a 5 in plot and a 1.5 in spice. I didn't mention this in the first, when I talked about the first book that I read. It is closed door spice. We get the hint of what's going on, but we don't get to see it, which is why I think it would be suitable for younger people under the age of 18, but not younger than 16. Now, I love this book. This book is my favorite one out of the whole series. I loved Lucien. As soon as that man opened his mouth, I saw straight through the rumors and saw that he was a kind, sweet-hearted man. And so did Madeline. Madeline ends up seeing the true version of Lucien. And of course, she falls for him. Now, the kidnapping part. While I understand it was necessary to the story and it was necessary to make Madeline who she was in the Fae realm, I did not like it at all. Of course, I wanted to hunt down everybody that was involved in the kidnapping and extract my revenge myself. But once again, Miss Stone, her writing with her female characters is the best. If you are looking for books where the female character is quite possibly the strongest out of the two, you will love this series. Like I said, the cliffhanger ends, it's huge because we're getting right there towards the end. I will say that in each book, when it gets to that main fight with the queen, I got goosebumps because when I read, I picture it as a movie in my head, and it literally gave me goosebumps, and I think that's so cool. I get goosebumps when I listen to music, but not a whole lot when I read books. And this whole series, with each book, I ended up with goosebumps at the end. It's an amazing feat, at least I think so, that an author's writer can do that to you. So I ended this book and I headed straight on to the fourth one. The fourth book is called The Forbidden Wolf King, and this follows King Axel and Zara. Now, with the Wolven clan, how you become queen, which is what this book is about. Axel needs a queen. They hold a Hunger Game type-esque battle. They send invitations out to all of the clans for the strongest single female in the clan, and they go up to the castle where they basically fight to the death. The winner becomes the queen. Now, Zara is from a loner outside pack called the Mud. I believe it's just the Mud pack. They live off the land. They don't have electricity. They don't really have running water. They hunt for their food. And people in the Wolven community see them as less. So when Zara got the invitation, because she is second in command in her pack, she wants to go. But she doesn't necessarily want to go to become queen. Like, everybody wants to go to become queen. Not Zara, because Zara has a history with King Axel. Before he was king and he was prince, his older brother was king. They met at a summer camp, which she did not know who Axel was. They started having a relationship. They fell in love. And one day she figured out that he was Prince Axel when his brother showed up and commanded him to leave with him, because rumor had gotten back to the king that Axel was in a relationship with someone beneath him, which is what everyone views the Mud Pack. Now, just like the second book, there are circumstances surrounding how Axel handled that, and I cannot reveal that because it will reveal part of the plot. But Axel ends up leaving the summer camp without fighting for Zara's love, and defending her, which upsets her, which it should. So basically, Zara is on a mission to prove that just because she's from this pack does not mean that she's worthless, that she is strong, she is fierce, and she deserves the love and recognition. When Zara shows up to the castle, Axel is not surprised to see her there because he sent out the invitations, but he was hoping that she wouldn't come. Because, like I said, it's a fight to the death. And Axel hasn't moved on from what happened during the summer. So we see the Hunger Game-esque fight go on. And then we come to the conclusion of the story, which is the conclusion of the big fight with the queen. Now, that found family that we see a little bit in book 2, we see a little bit in book 3, we see come full circle in book 4, because the 4 kings come together to defeat the human queen, or to try to defeat the human queen. Now, what did I rate this? I rated this a 4.75 in plot and a 1.5 in spice. Out of all the females, Zara is my favorite. I love Romeo and Juliet type of books, whether it be the poor girl, poor boy, or the ones from the wrong side of the tracks that fall in love with people that they shouldn't. I love that type of story, even though, yes, it ends in tragedy. But I love Zara, and I love her tenacity and how strong she is and how she really doesn't care what people think. If you tell her that she's not worthy of anything, she's going to prove you wrong. And I really liked King Axel. My heart broke for him for the circumstances that happened that summer. And I love a man who is willing to give up everything or really a man or a woman who's willing to give up everything for the love of their life, which Axel is. Now, when it comes to the ending of the huge fight with the human queen, the people who in the fight, I loved who she chose, because she could have chosen anybody from book 1 to book 4, and I love who she chose. And no, I'm not going to tell you. I will say this, that this series is very easy to read if you are a new fantasy reader, or even if you're an expert fantasy reader. The world building and the way that the magic is spoke about and written, it makes it very easy to read. As someone who hasn't read a lot of fantasy lately, it's the reason I picked up the book, because I wanted to get into fantasy. And I think this is a very good series to start out reading fantasy. And it is a series that I will be returning to over and over again. Well, when I got done reading book 4, I jumped back and read book 1 in the series. Like I said, I moved on to the first book in the series, which is The Last Dragon King. Now, I'm going to give a disclaimer, a trigger warning. If the mention of infant loss or miscarriages is a sensitive topic for you, skip forward in this video about 5 or 6 minutes, because that is a trope in this book. And like I said at the beginning of this video, and I will say again, your mental health is more important than hearing me talk about this book. So go ahead and skip forward. Okay, now that they're gone, this follows King Dre and Arwen. King Dre had a wife, and he is the Dragon King. And his power when it comes to making an heir, and the power that that heir will have, is very dangerous, and it results in many miscarriages and infant loss in stillborn form. Now, the book does not go into too many details about it, but it is talked about. So he is looking for a wife, and he has a couple of twins. They are called sniffers, and they are able to sniff a power, like the power that any dragon shifter holds inside, whether it be very little or they're the most powerful shifters around. So he's going to each one of the villages to find the best candidate to give him a living heir. Which brings us to Arwen. Arwen is from a little village. Her father has passed away, so she has now taken on the role of hunter and gatherer for her mother, herself, and her little sister. When she comes back from a huge hunt, she gets ready for its love day, I believe. When her mom finds out about the sniffers coming to their village, her mom pulls Arwen aside and tells her a secret that she has been hiding Arwen's whole life. She tells her that Arwen possesses a power that will make her the mortal enemy of the Dragon King, and that the sniffers will be able to smell it. Now, Arwen thought she was only a 1/10 dragon shifter. She didn't think she was very powerful, but her mom tells Arwen that she has to leave. She has to run. Well, Arwen tries to run, but the Dragon King catches her before she can leave and takes her to the sniffers, where they sense, that she is powerful. She is taken to the castle along with all the other females to go through more tests to find out who is the most powerful and who has the best chance of giving Dre a living heir. Well, once there, the secret comes out, which turns them into enemies. It follows that line. There's also something that happens with the Human Queen, but once again, if I give it away, it'll give away the whole book, and I'm not into that. So let's just go into what I rated this book. I rated this book a 4.5 in plot, and once again, a 1.5 in spice. Had I not read this book last, had I not started with book 2 and then, read 3 and 4, my anxiety would have been through the roof with this book, and I would not have been able to read it all in one sitting like I did. Because this book causes, well, at least it causes me, so much anxiety, because each one of the kings have, a certain weight to their shoulders, but King Dre has the most weight to him. And it's heartbreaking, and it just puts a lot of pressure on him and on the females. So yeah, I'm glad I read it in the order that I did. Now, I love seeing how the fight with the Human Queen started. It started years ago, but we see how the Dragon King gets dragged into it. We also get that little bit of found family when King Rafe, which is the elf king, comes to Dre and asking for his help in fighting the Human Queen. Once again, like I said before, this is a great series for a starter fantasy. I absolutely love the series. I will be rereading the series a lot. Okay, these next 3 books, even saying the titles are probably going to make me blush, but I've always told somebody that if you can't talk about what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you want to do, if it embarrasses you, you are too young to be doing it. And so I did it. I got to talk about it. The next 3 books I'm going to talk about are in a series, and they have to be read in order, because where book 1 ends, book 2 picks up, and where book 2 ends, book 3 picks up. It follows the same couple. So I'm just going to talk about them collectively. The first book is Hurt Me Daddy. They're all by Misha Horn. The second book is Comfort Me Daddy. And then the third book is Away Games. This is a Tudor romance between 2 male characters. So they're MM romance. The first book, Hurt Me Daddy, I rated a 4 for plot and a 4 for spice. The second book, Comfort Me, I rated a 4 for plot and a 3 for spice. And the third book, Away Game, I rated a 4 for plot and a 3 for spice. Okay, so all 3 of these books follow, like I said, the same character. We have Logan, who is a 19-year-old high school senior. He is on the football team. I believe he's either a quarterback or a wide receiver. He's one of those two. And his home life is not the greatest. Now, this guy is depicted as a 200-pound beast on the field. He takes no nonsense, puts people in his place. But a scene in the book showed him at home cowering in a closet with a butcher knife because he was scared. So to say his home life is atrocious is an understatement. The only way out is through a football scholarship, which he's been offered to a local college. In order to take that scholarship, he has to pass chemistry, which he is failing. So his coach gets him a tutor. And the tutor's name is Caleb, who Logan has a history with. They are obviously in the same class. They are seniors together. And they are both 19. They got held back a year. It doesn't say why they got held back, but they got held back a year, which is why they are so much older than what a normal senior would be. When they were younger, Logan would pick on Caleb because he is the nerdy type, but as soon as Caleb hit a growth spurt, Logan kind of just forgot he was there. They call him the Beast because this guy is huge. Anyways, Caleb starts to tutor Logan and feelings start to arise. And then we have the daddy kink come out. Caleb wants to take some of the weight off of Logan's shoulder. He wants to take care of him. And these stories follow from the beginning of the relationship up until an away game. I already told you what I rated all of these books, so let's jump into my thoughts. I loved these stories. I've read the daddy kink once or twice, and I didn't necessarily like it because the other part of that is the whole little thing, which that gets too close to ick view for me. But with this, it made sense because Logan is trying to hold it all together, and he's holding the weight of the world on his shoulders. He needs someone like Caleb to step in to be a figure for him that he's never had, to make sure that he takes care of himself, that he eats regularly, that he takes care of his studies, that he gets regular sleep, and that's what Caleb is for him. Now, the first book is relatively short in pages, and the second book is longer. I thought the second book was too long. It seemed like it was replaying the same scene over and over again, so I thought it could be shorter. But did that stop me from reading all three of the books? No, it did not. Now, saying that, does that stop me from wanting more of the books? No, it does not. We get a happily ever after for now in the third book. Like, we know that they're going to make it, the couple's going to make it. But I want to know more about Logan's future. Does he achieve his goals? All the hard work that he's putting into his studies and he's putting into making sure that he is the best he can be, and also the hard work that Caleb's putting in. I need to see that play out. And we don't get an epilogue of like 5 years into the future or even like 2 years into the future. Like, Logan has dreams and Caleb has dreams for Logan, and I need to know more. Author could write 10 more books about these characters, and I would read them for the simple fact of I need to know how it all works out. And yes, all three of these are in Kindle Unlimited. I forgot to say that earlier. Okay, up next we have another book that you can find on KU. It is Broken Souls by Ariana, that's probably not how you pronounce her first name, Kane. And this is a small town, slow burn strangers to lovers, and it follows Alicia and Mark. Alicia has suffered something very traumatic that happened to her, so this book does have trigger warnings, so read them and take them to heart. But she suffered something very traumatic, and because of that, her family hovers over her. They are very protective of her to the point where she's starting to feel smothered. So she decides it is time to move out on her own. So she rents a little house in town, and she is determined to make it work. The first night she is there, she lights a fire in her fireplace, and she doesn't like vent something like that's in the chimney where the smoke goes out. And so her house fills with smoke. and her neighbor Mark notices it, and he is a firefighter, so he runs over to help her out. But when he gets there, he finds Alicia, and he instantly puts her in the spoiled princess category, which he does not like. Now, Mark also has some trauma from his past. He doesn't think he is worth much. He doesn't believe he brings anything to anybody. He sometimes feels like a burden, so he's very closed off. Well, with circumstances happening like Alicia's pipe burst the next day, so Mark goes and helps, they strike up this reluctant friendship. And then they strike up a deal that deals with the hanky-panky aspect of this book. And we all know that when someone strikes up a deal like that, feelings evolve and it gets complicated. And so we watch all of that play out, and we watch these two characters try to heal from their trauma. I rated this a 4 in plot and a 3 in spice. Now, first off, this is part of a series, and I felt like I was missing part of the story. Now, saying that, you could read this book and you could think that you're not missing part of the story, because I was told that you could read it as a standalone. But for my brain, I felt like I was missing half of the story, especially when it came to the side characters, which they play a pretty big part. The side characters are Alicia's brothers. I first read this book just because of a female main character's name, Alicia, which is my first name, and I haven't seen that name in a lot of books. But what kept me reading was how Mark and Alicia not only was helping heal each other, but how their relationship was healing themselves. And that's what I love in romance books. The spice is okay, but I love a good book with a great plot. And this book had it. It had the trauma, it had the healing, it had the friendship, and it had the struggles of when you have a traumatic past and you want to get over it for somebody, but you just don't know how, that push that you need. I will say this. The one thing that I hated was Alicia's brother and how he handled finding out about her dating Mark. There's some circumstances between her brother and Mark, and the night that the traumatic thing happened to Alicia, and the way her brother handled it and outed everything was unforgivable. Alicia, of course, does end up forgiving him, but I myself could not. And his book is the first book in the series, which I have downloaded. I haven't read it yet because I'm so mad at him. I am interested, especially in any book written after Alicia's, because I want to see bits and pieces of Alicia and Mark. But I might go back to the first book and read it. I'm not sure yet, though. Up next, I read Gorgeous Lies by Brittany Taylor. This is a second chance romance, and it is found on KU. This follows Victoria and Jude. The book starts off with Victoria getting married to someone who's not Jude, and she finds out that her fiance, on their wedding day, she finds out that he cheated with his sister. Well, she breaks up with him and she moves back to Boston, where she is enrolling in the local college to finish her degree, and her aunt gives her a ballet studio, but Victoria is turning it into a bookstore. So Victoria's aunt hires this company to come in and help her. And who walks in but Jude? Jude and Victoria have a past. They dated in college and it didn't end well. Jude in college was someone who was striving to live up to his father. His father is this wealthy businessman who thinks, of course, that he's better than everybody. He has to join the family business, and that gets in between Jude and Victoria. And how they ended in the past, she went to talk to him about something that happened, and she ends up in a car wreck. And then she ends up leaving town right afterwards. But the Jude from the past is not the Jude that Victoria sees standing in front of her. He is working construction. He seems to not have a lot of money. He seems to not be part of the family business. But even though he's not the same, so much has happened between the two of them that at the beginning they're enemies. But then, of course, they both still care for each other, and so they start hooking up, and That's the story that we get to see, we read, is them trying to heal from the past and grow together as a couple and all the drama that unfolds. Now, I rated this a 4 in plot and a 3 in spice. Books like this make me mad. But saying that, I do love the whole Romeo and Juliet, so it's kind of weird. But what I meant by books like this make me mad is when outside people run relationships because they believe that one person is not up to the standards that they deem for the other person. Even though I love Romeo and Juliet, I do get mad at that story, but I do love it. The one thing that I loved the most is how Jude handled himself when he hit rock bottom. And he hit rock bottom hard, but he never stopped bettering himself. He scratched, he clawed, he pulled his way up from the gutter to be a better man. Now, Victoria is a strong written character. My heart broke for her for what she went through, but she never let it beat her down, and she kept pushing back, and she changed her plans, she changed her dreams, and nothing or no one was going to stop her. And I absolutely love that about her character. One other thing that I loved about Victoria's character is even when they were dating in high school, she wanted to change Jude, but she knew that she couldn't. He had to want to change for himself, not just for her. And I think that's a very mature way to write a character. I know that I read books for escape sometimes from the real world, but I do like seeing that maturity in books, of knowing that you want to change someone, but you can't force someone to change. They have to choose to change for themselves. And that's what Victoria did. But this book also shows what love is and what a true relationship is. It's hard work, it's sacrifice, it's not always rainbows and kisses and sunshine and unicorns. You have to put in that work, and sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it hurts, and sometimes it's gritty. But if you truly love that other person in your life, it's well worth it. And that is what this story is all about. And I don't know if I said it, but I will say it now. It is free to read on Kindle Unlimited. Okay, my AC kicked on at the end of that last clip, so if you can hear that, I apologize. It's supposed to be almost 90 where I am today, and it's already starting to get hot in here. But anyways, on to the next book. The next book I read was Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I will tell you that I was very nervous to pick up this book because I heard it made you cry, but I've seen a lot of videos out there saying how great it is, how everybody loved it, and I had a friend telling me to read it, so I picked it up, and I'm very glad they did. This is a strangers to lovers, small town romance. It follows Archer and Bree. Now, Bree just lost her father in a very traumatic way, so she moves to a small town in Maine to heal, to find herself, and just to take some time. And in this small town, on her first night, she goes out to a convenience store where she buys some stuff. When she walks out, her bag breaks, and it goes everywhere. And this mysterious, long-haired, long-bearded stranger stops and helps her pick up her stuff. And Bree is talking to him, thanking him, but he never speaks. And when he goes to turn to walk away, she hollers out for him, but it's like he doesn't hear her. She never got his name, so she goes on about her business. And while she is talking to other people in town, she gets a job at a local diner. She comes to find out that the guy is Archer. He is this loner guy who lives on the edge of town that this town really has forgotten about. He supposedly is deaf and mute, and the town treats him like a freak. He's a pariah to this small town, which is very sad, because when Archer was 7, I believe, he lost his mom, his dad, and his uncle in a very traumatic way. And then he was sent to live with his other uncle who had mental illnesses. So he wasn't raised the best way. He was raised in a secluded lifestyle, let's put it that way. And this town just completely forgot about him. Well, Bree stumbles upon his house when she is going to the beach And they slowly become friends because Bree's dad is deaf, so she knows American Sign Language. And Archer taught himself American Sign Language, so they're able to communicate and they become friends. And then we watch their friendship grow, we watch them become romantic, and it's just a lovely story. I rated this a 5 for plot and a 2.5 for spice. And let me tell you, I love this book. My heart broke from the first chapter with little Archer, and it continued to break throughout the book, but it also got put back together again. I will be looking down at my book a lot because I don't want to forget anything, and I will just ramble if I don't. The town. How the town treated Archer was unforgivable. It was disgusting, and I hated it. They just forgot about this poor child. And then when he grew up and his uncle who raised him passed away and Archer had to venture out on his own, the town just steered clear of him. Like literally crossed the street to get away from him. Why would you do that? Put in what I love about small towns is how they rally around everybody, because I live in a small town and we rally around people. We're there for our neighbors, but not this town. Bree's neighbor is a very lovely person, and when Bree starts talking about Archer, everybody in town's like, oh, I wish I would have done more. Oh, I should have done more. Well, why didn't you? Seriously, why didn't you? I want to burn this town down for Archer because they treated him like a pariah, and that broke my heart. Bree, God bless her. I love her. I've never loved a fictional female character more than I loved her. She saw that he needed a friend and she wanted to be friends with him. She didn't care what other people thought about it, and I loved it. I loved watching them fall in love. I love Archer, watching him become into a man, to grow and to experience new things. Now, the way that Archer had to find himself and come to terms with his condition and how he lived and his feelings for Bree broke my heart, but Mia wrote it in the best possible way. She really knew her characters, and I don't see how Archer and Bree could have worked out had Archer not gone off to find himself the way that he did. I absolutely loved it. Now, to the point where the book made me cry. Yes, I wanted to rip the book in half. I wanted to throw it out in the storm because it was storming when I read this book. I wanted to set it on fire. I didn't want to see this book anymore because we all thought something happened. Thankfully, that something didn't happen, and the ending was everything. And watching Archer get his happily ever after and seeing the town repent for what they did and make it better fixed my heart. I will say this: I wish Archer's his aunt and his cousin got more punishment for what they did. But I will leave it at that. I will say this, that I bought Travis by Mia Sheridan, and Falling for Gage by Mia Sheridan, which are two side characters in the story, just for the hopes of seeing Archer and Bree. Okay, up next is a book that you can get on Kindle Unlimited. It is Sinister Vows by A.M. McCoy. I'm going to go turn that AC off really quickly because I'm pretty sure it's loud. And instead, I'm going to turn on a fan. Hopefully that's not as loud as the AC. Anyways, where was I at? Oh yeah, Sinister Vows by A.M. McCoy. This is a mafia arranged marriage. It follows Nicholas and Ariana. I don't really remember much about this book. Not because I didn't enjoy it. It was entertainment. I liked it. But the plot didn't get me. I will try to tell you what I do remember. Ariana was promised to Nicholas when she was not of age for marriage. But now it has come time for her to marry this mafia boss. And in her family, there is a tradition that a priest will come bless the wedding the night before because the bride has to be pure. Well, when the priest comes in to do his blessing and do what he has to do to ensure that she is pure, Ariana ends up enjoying herself a little bit more than what she thought she would. She figured it would be this old, disgusting guy, but it wasn't. It was a tattooed, older gentleman, and she enjoyed it, and the next day she couldn't get him out of her mind. Well, on her wedding day, when she's walking down the aisle, she sees the priest, but it's not the same priest that was in her bedroom, and it's supposed to be. But then she looks to her future husband, and that is the guy who came in and blessed their marriage. Now, Nicholas, his whole spill is he wants revenge against her family, and if he has to use her to get it, he's going to, and basically he wants an heir. Now, what did I rate this book? I rated this book a 3 in plot and a 5 in spice. Now, a 3 for me, it's not bad. It means that I enjoyed the book, I had a good time, but it was missing something and I just didn't love it. 2 and below means I didn't like it. I downloaded this book based on a TikTok video and of a spicy scene, and that's what I got. I got a book that didn't have a whole lot of plot, that had more spice than anything else, which fair play to the author. I know people out there enjoy it, and let me preface this. If I love a book that you don't like, that's perfectly fine. If I don't like a book that you love, once again, perfectly fine. The great thing about the world is that we all have opinions. We are all entitled to our opinions. What we're not entitled to is hurting somebody with our opinions. And I will never tell you you're wrong, and I don't expect you to tell me that I'm wrong, because it's my opinion and you have yours, I have mine. Anyways, I thought this book could deal with more of the mafia aspect in the plot. To me, if you write a mafia book, it needs to have mafia action scenes. And we got one good one towards the end, but most of the book was around their sex life, basically. And that's not the type of books that I enjoy reading, that I love. I love a good plot. Throw in some spicy scenes if you want, keep them out if you want, I don't care. But I don't necessarily like to just read straight up spicy books. So this one wasn't my favorite, but I did enjoy it and I wanted to tell you about it. Up next, I read Late Bloomer by Macy Eden. No, Macy Eddings. This is a lesbian strangers to lovers. It follows Opal and Pepper. Opal is a waitress and she is a people pleaser, which is something that we need to know. So basically, she puts everybody before her and she just goes up and she does beyond what she should for people. So when a friend gives Opal a lottery ticket and she scratches it off and she hits big, I think something like $500,000, everyone comes out of the woodworks and wants to be friends with Opal, wants to catch up, and basically wants just to use her to get a piece of the money. But Opal decides that she is going to use the money to follow her lifelong dream of being a artist. She loves painting scenes and stuff on shoes, and that's what she wants to do. Now she's looking for a place to do that. She thought maybe the city, but then she decided she wanted something in nature. So she comes across a Facebook marketplace ad for a flower farm. She meets with the owner and she buys it, sight unseen, basically. And then she travels to the farm where she finds out that A, it's not abandoned like she was led to believe. There's actually somebody living there, and the person living there is claiming that they are the owners of the land and the cabin, and chaos ensues. The person living there is Pepper. Pepper was dropped off by her mother to live there with her grandmother, and her grandmother has since passed. And since there is no will, Pepper does not have anything saying that she is the legal owner. And it was her mother who sold the flower farm to Opal. Well, Opal and Pepper come to an arrangement that they will live together and that Pepper will pay Opal money for the farm. Feelings come up, they try to fight it, and then a heavy rain threatens to take the farm under for the season. And they join a competition together to raise money to help save the farm and to pay Opal. Now, I rated this a 4.75 for plot and a 3 for spice. Something that needs to be said about Pepper is that she is autistic, and Opal has a undiagnosed mental, I don't want to call it an issue or a problem, but she's got some kind of mental thing going on. I believe neurodivergent. No, that doesn't sound right. Something. It was never diagnosed, but I love that take with these characters, and it seemed like Macy, either Macy or Maisie, however you pronounce the author's name, she did research into how to write a character with autism, and I absolutely adore Pepper. The way this book was written, I forgot that I was reading, and in the middle of reading this, I had some personal problems pop up, and it put me in a little bit of a depression, and this book helped a lot to get my mind off of things. I will tell you that when it comes to the competition, it didn't play out like I was hoping it played out, which is why it's not a 5 stars, and which seems probably like a very small reason, but it I wanted everything to be perfect because they deserved it and it wasn't. But I love the most how both of the characters, Opal and Pepper, they understood each other and they understood like the autism and whatever Opal's was. And they didn't want to change each other. Once again, it was one of them stories where the characters just loved each other for who they was. I love the side characters in the story, Opal's two sisters, Pepper's friends. And I'm hoping that maybe we get to see books for the side characters. There's a married couple that I would love to see their story. I would love to see Opal's sister's story. This is unfortunately not on Kindle Unlimited. I think the paperback on Amazon is cheaper than the Kindle version, but if it sounds like something you're interested in, it's worth the buy. And then the last book that I read on my Kindle app is My Dark Desire by L.J. Sheen and Parker S. Huntington. This is an Enemies to Lovers. It is a Cinderella retelling and it follows Pharaoh and Zach. Now, when Zach was younger, he was in a horrific car accident that killed his father. And because of how the car accident happened and how long he was trapped in the car with his father and all of that, Zach has an aversion of touching people. He cannot stand to be touched. And Zach is deemed as this prince of Dark Road, I believe is what it's called. And because of his father's passing and how his mother took it, Zach has allowed his mother to have pretty much control over his life, and she is pressuring him to get married. So they hold a ball one night for him to meet prospective brides. And Pharaoh is the Cinderella of the story. She lives with her two evil stepsisters and her stepmother. They own a cleaning business, and Pharaoh is basically the servant. She does all the work at the cleaning business, and then, of course, she's the maid at their house. She cannot find her father's will, and she has to watch her stepmother sell off her father's belongings. And her stepmother sold off a pendant necklace to Zach, and Pharaoh wants it back. So she contracts this plan to break into Zach's house during the ball and steal the pendant. She is caught before she gets it, and she spends the next couple of hours playing the game of Go with Zach, and they kind of hit it off to the point where Zach wants to find her after realizing that she tried to steal from him. Well, he tracks her down and he forces her to become his servant. So she is now his servant and has to watch Zach. And of course, there's feelings developing. But the one major thing is that Zach can touch Pharaoh without feeling like he needs to burn his flesh off, without having that aversion to it. So Zach is going to use Pharaoh to fix him in that aspect while he still takes a bride to, you know, uh, what is the word I'm looking for? To appease his mom and to have an heir. And Pharaoh doesn't like that, but she also doesn't want a relationship, so that's what we watch unfold. Now, I rated this a 4.5 in plot and a 4 in spice. Talk about mommy issues. Zach's issues with his mom and how he allows her so much control over his life made me mad. I wanted to smack him upside the head and tell him he needed to have a conversation with his mom, especially when it got to the point where he was having feelings for Pharaoh. Saying this I believe this book was like 100 pages too long. It could have wrapped up better and faster had they cut out a couple of the things. The reason that this wasn't a 5 star for me, because I really did enjoy it, was because of the side characters. There is 3 side characters: uh, Romeo, Ollie, and Dal. Romeo and Dal are from the first book, My Dark Romeo, or something like that. And I was interested in reading that book first, which you can read them as standalones. But after seeing them in this book, I will not be reading that book because Dal got on my nerves. Romeo is not too bad, but I could not stand Dal. I wanted her gone. Now, Ollie, I am interested in his story, so I might read his story. Now, let's get to Pharaoh. I love Pharaoh. She does not let her circumstances get her down, and she is hilarious. The banter between her and Zach, and the fact that she does not care how she talks to this prince, is priceless. I was laughing at a lot of their interactions together. That banter is something that I absolutely love. This is on Kindle Unlimited if you want to give it a shot. So after that last book, I went on a big reread. I reread 6 books that I've already read in the past. So I will show them to you. I will tell you what I rated them when I first read them and if my rating has changed, which I don't think most of them have. The first book I reread was Protector by Nicole Dax. This follows Zach and Adam. Now this is a male-male romance. It is small town and it is best friends, 2 lovers. Adam and Zach are 18-year-old seniors in a small town in Kansas. They are on the football team. And this story really does just follow their relationship and their friendship together. Now, Adam works on his family farm with his 2 brothers, his father, and his mother. And that is what he wants to do when he gets out of high school. Like, he's not getting out of Kinsley, which is the town that they live in. He is staying, he is going to work the farm, and that's been his dream. Zachary, on the other hand, he lives in town with his mom and his stepfather and his 2 little sisters. Now, while he's 18 and he can legally move out on his own, he stays because his stepfather is not the nicest guy in the world, and he stays to protect his sisters. Now, Zachary messed up in a big time way. He hurt his ex-girlfriend, and so she is like a cheerleader and she's trying to turn everybody against him. And we just follow Adam and Zachary as they fall in love, as Adam figures out his sexuality because he feels like he's broken, because he doesn't act like a normal 18-year-old guy. He's not hooking up randomly with people. He's not really even attracted to people. Sex is not a thing to him. He's more focused on school and running the farm, and he feels broken. And we just watch them find themselves, and then we watch Adam and his family come to Zachary and his sister's rescue. And I absolutely love this story. I rated this story when I read it first a 5 in plot and a 4 in spice, and my rating still stands. I love this whole series. It can be read as a standalone. It is on KU. And I love Adam and Zach. I love how strong Adam is for Zach. He knows about his home life, and he doesn't fully know what's going on with the whole ex, but he's there for him. And when Zachary comes out to Adam, Adam doesn't care. And that's the big thing about Nicole's books, is that the main characters, they don't care. It's more of how the small town handles it. And luckily, this is the last book in the series, so the small town is starting to change and differ. And that's what this whole series really is. It's how small towns react to someone who is not what they should be. Like I said, I live in a small town. I am in a same-sex relationship with my wife. We've been together for 14 years. Well, 14 years at the end of this month. And so that's why I relate to this series, because I've been there. I've been that outcast. But these books are easy to read. They're great for palate cleansers if you read heavily like traumatic books, if you read dark romances and you need something cute, something sweet, something fast-paced, something fluffy. This book and this series is for you. If you are in a book slump, these books get you out of it. I read this book because I was depressed, and I laughed, I giggled, and I fell in love all over again. Okay, I need to preface this clip with the fact that if my audio has changed since my previous videos, once again I'm having issues with my audio, but I don't want to re-record all this. So if this is lower, I've unplugged my microphone, so hopefully you can still hear me, and hopefully I don't have the same issue as I did last time. Now, the next books that I reread is a full series, and the full series is on Kindle Unlimited. The first one is The Sinner by Kelsey Clayton. This follows Savannah and Grayson. Savannah and Grayson have been friends for years, up until the age of 7, when Savannah went to stay the night with her grandmother. When she come back, Grayson and his family had disappeared. She tried for years to track him down with no avail, so she gave up. Now, after Grayson left, Savannah's father lost all of their money and they become poor. Her freshman year of high school, Savannah's ballet teacher decided that she would pay the tuition for Savannah to go to Haven Grace Prep, which is an elite private school in their town. But Savannah has kept hidden for the past 4 years, because now they're 18. She kept hidden how poor she was and how horrible her home life is from everyone. Now, Grayson, when he was 7, his father was arrested for a crime that he did not commit, and Grayson and his mother moved away because 6 months later, Grayson's father was killed in a prison riot. Well, when Grayson got older, he was able to get his hands on his dad's case file and figured out that Savannah's father set him up and that Savannah helped. So now Grayson has moved back to town because he wants revenge against Savannah. So when Savannah goes to school in her senior year, she runs into Grayson, and it is not the reunion that she thought she would get. She thought that if she ever saw him again, they would jump in each other's arms, they would kiss, they would be together, because that is how close they was when they were younger and how much that she loved him even at the age of 7. So Grayson is set out for his revenge. He finds out about her home life, how poor she is, and he goes to use that against her. But of course there is feelings that still are there, and any good revenge plot, when there's feelings involved, it all goes downhill fast. I read this in 2021. I rated it a 4 for plot and a 4.5 for spice, and I will keep my ratings like that. It is a 4 for me. Now, I love the friend group in these books. When the secret does come out about Savannah, there is one main person. His name is Carter, and he gets a book in another series, in a spin-off series. He was perfect. I absolutely love Carter. I love the found family in these books. Grayson wasn't my favorite character. I like a good revenge story. I do. I just thought that with how close they was when they were little, that when he found out all of Savannah's secrets, because she has more than the fact that she's poor, that the revenge would take a backseat to it. But of course it didn't. Now Savannah, on the other hand, I love her. She goes through so much, and yes, it was wrong for her to keep her secret the way she did, and it was also wrong for her to forget about the old friends that she had, but she was doing it to keep them safe. and she was doing it to survive, and she is a strong-willed person, and I like when characters are like that, which I've said a million times before. Okay, up next in the series is my favorite book in the series with my favorite male character, and that is The Saint by Kelsey Clayton. This follows Knox and Delaney. Now, we meet both Knox and Delaney in the first book. Delaney is the good girl, the saint. She is the valedictorian, and she was Savannah and Grayson's best friend when they were younger. And then when Grayson comes back to town, Delaney, becomes friends with Savannah again, along with Grayson again. Now, Knox is Savannah's old neighbor from the poorer part of town, and he goes to the public high school on the opposite side of the road from the public school. And Knox does not have a good home life. It's not horrible, but it's not great. And he does partake in extracurricular substance usage, let's put it that way. But Knox's story is that at the end of the center, Grayson needs help, and he comes to Knox for help, and Knox knows a guy that can help out, so he calls them, and he ends up in debt along with Grayson to this not nice guy. Well, the guy calls in the debt, and Knox normally fights in this underground fighting scene that this guy is in control of, and there's 2 tiers. The bottom tier is what Knox used to fight in. It has a time limit, and at the end, they declare a winner. Well, Knox is being moved up, so Grayson is going to take Knox's place in the lower tier. Knox has to go up to the higher tier, which basically means that only one person walks away out of that fight. So Knox is in for the fight of his life, and that is the premise of the story. Delaney is the good girl who ends up amused by the bad boy, and they end up together, and Knox is pretty much fighting for his life. When Delaney gets threatened, Knox of course tries to break it off, but things happen. Chaos ensues, and that's all I'm going to tell you because it will ruin the whole story. In 2021, I gave this a 5 for plot and a 3 for spice, and my rating stays the same. Knox is my favorite. I love him to death because he's a great friend, because he helped Grayson out and he helps out his other friends, and also because he will do anything to protect his girl. I love a man who is willing to hurt himself to make them both sad for a little while if it means protecting the person he loves, and that is Knox through and through. Now, I also love Delaney because while she is pictured as the good girl, she does have a very, I don't want to say naughty, but a bad streak where she wants to venture on the side of danger. And once again, it's the whole Romeo and Juliet, but this time we've got the good girl and the bad boy vibes. With the addition of Knox, we get introduced to more friends with the found family trope, and I absolutely love both friend groups. I love Delaney's friend groups, which is Savannah and Grayson and all the popular kids, and I love Knox's friend group, which is more of the poor kids. Now, unfortunately, in this story, Carter turns out to be the bad guy. If you're confused, Carter is the one that I said I loved in Savannah's friend group. Well, that's the only downfall to this book, is it makes me not really like him. Up next in the series is an age gap teacher-student relationship. It is called The Rebel, and this follows Tessa and Asher. Now, Tessa is Delaney's twin sister, so she should have graduated and she should be heading off to college. But Tessa messed around and missed too much school, and so she has to repeat her senior year. Well, we meet up with Tessa in the summer. It's the beginning of summer before everybody leaves for college. All her friends leave. And she is at a club with her group of friends, and they use the fake ID to get in because Tessa is 19 years old, and she gets eye contact with a guy across the club. She goes over, she introduces herself, he introduces himself as Asher, and he is shocked that she doesn't know who he is. One thing leads to another. They have a one-night stand, and then they never see each other again until the beginning of school, when she walks into her English class and sees that her English teacher is her one-night stand. Now, Asher is a pro NFL football player who has been recently injured and can no longer play. His publicist thought it would be a good idea for him to go teach high school football, but in order to do that, he also had to teach the English class. Now, as soon as he sees Tessa, Tessa, of course, gave him a fake last name, so it didn't register when he saw the Tessa on his list of students to the Tessa he met at the club. But as soon as he sees her, of course, we can't do this. You know, even though you're of age, you're my student. And that's basically the premise of the book, is we watch them fight their feelings for each other. But also, what is a main plot point is Tessa's depression and her mental health. At the end of The Saint, Tessa went through some very traumatic stuff when the leader of the fighting ring kidnapped her to get to Delaney and Knox. And so Tessa is still dealing with everything that happened that night and some stuff that happens in her books. And that is a major plot point for the second half of the book. Now, I will say this, and I forgot to mention it when I started talking about this series. This series does have a lot of substance abuse. It does deal with heavy topics, so check your trigger warnings because they're there and they're there for a reason. Anyways, what did I rate this? Well, in 2021, I rated this a 4 in plot and a 4.5 in spice, and my rating still holds true. I would probably up it to a 4.5 in plot because reading this the second time, I fell in love with the story more. It's still not my favorite, but it did make me cry. I do remember why I rated it a 4 the first time. It was because it was the first time I ever read a teacher-student relationship book. The age gap, I'm not really worried about. My grandparents have a 10-year age gap. As long as they're legal, I'm good with that. But this time around, I loved more how the friend group, because we get a different friend group because now Tessa is in with basically what was the junior class. We get a whole new friend group. But then we still have the old friend group. And I love how when Tessa needs them, they all rally around her. It's that found family trope that is so strong in these books that makes me absolutely love them. And while I loved the relationship aspect between Asher and Tessa, because who doesn't love a forbidden relationship, I loved the mental health representation so much more. I loved that plot in the story, and I loved seeing how it was taken care of and how it was explained, and I think Kelsey did an amazing job with that. Alright, the last book in this series is The Enemy. This is a enemies to lovers, stepbrother, stepsister romance, and it follows Lennon and Cade. Now I'm going to talk about Cade first. Cade is a 19-year-old surfer whose mom just dropped a bombshell that her and his dad is getting a divorce because she has been cheating on his father, and she is going to be moving him and his little sister into her new boyfriend's place. Now, Cade does not like that at all. He would rather stay living with his dad, but he chooses to go live with his mom and her new boyfriend for his sister. Now, he wants revenge for his family. He wants to get his family back, so he plans on using the summer to find out anything and everything about this new guy, his mom's new boyfriend, and taking them down. Even though his mom's new boyfriend is super uber rich, he doesn't care. He's going to take him down. Well, you guessed it, Lennon, which we meet in Tessa's book, The Rebel, because she is Tessa's best friend, is his new stepsister. Now, Lennon had no idea that her dad was seeing a married woman. It was dropped on her like a bomb that he was in a relationship and that this woman and her kids was moving in. But Lennon will do anything for her dad because Lennon's mom left when she was a baby and all she has is her father. And so she will do anything in order to make her dad happy. Now, Lennon does have a boyfriend at the beginning of this book, and she does end up having feelings for Cade. And she breaks up with her boyfriend when she finds out that he was cheating on her, and agrees to help Cade break up their parents. But when she can't go through with it, Cade sees her as an enemy, as number one enemy, and he starts to focus his revenge on Lennon. Now, in 2021, sorry, it's getting warm in here. I rated this a 4 for plot and a 2 for spice. I would knock it down to a 3.5 in plot just because I didn't feel the connection between the two characters. I liked them individually, but I didn't see the connection between them two. I didn't feel that chemistry between them. I mean, I love a good revenge story, who doesn't? But I didn't buy it. I had fun while reading it. I enjoyed myself. Obviously, I mean, I reread it and I bought the paperback, and I will probably reread it again. They're not my favorite couple. It's not my favorite story. I liked the addition of Cade and his friend group, and the whole surfer aspect of it. And I liked seeing Lennon, get her happily ever after. I didn't buy the chemistry between the two of them, and I'm sorry, but it's not my favorite. Alright, the last book that I read this month, I actually read it aloud to my wife because she listens to audiobooks, and she has listened to the first three books in this series, but we don't own this one in audio form, so I read it to her, and it is The Player by Nikki J. Summers. This is the fourth book in her Soldiers of Anarchy book. You do not have to read the series in order. They are all in KU, but I will recommend that you read them all. Every single one of them, because I love this series so much. This series follows Will and Barney. It is enemies to lovers, kidnapping, vigilante. Will is part of a vigilante group called, of course, the Soldiers of Anarchy, along with Adam, Devin, Will, of course, Will's there, Colton, and Tyler. Now, at a mass party that the soldiers are throwing at the sanctuary, the asylum where they live, Will and Barney gets kidnapped. And when they wake up, they're in a basement. There is someone called the Taskmaster, and he tells them that if they want to live, they have to play his game of consequences, which is exactly what the soldiers call what they do when they dole out justice that they see fit. And when I say that, they do the justice that the police doesn't do and the justice system doesn't do sometimes. But anyways, now Will and Barney are kidnapped, and they're having to do these consequences. And Will and Barney, they kind of love to fight each other. I don't want to give a whole lot away, so I will say this. They are able to escape, and then when they escape, which there's like two halves of the book, they're kidnapped, they escape. When they escape, we see the soldiers do what they do best to get their own justice. Now, when I read this last year when it came out, I gave it a 5 in plot, and I believe a 3 in spice, and my ratings don't change. This is a 5 in plot. It's my favorite story of the series. I absolutely love Will. I love the banter between Barney and Will. I love the banter that Will has with everyone. I'm not going to lie. My favorite character in this is Will. Barney's okay, but I read the story because it's Will's story. I understand how Barney and Will, fall in love and they work together, but I love Will in this story. Now, I can't tell you all of my thoughts because this is a story that you really should go in with as little information as possible, because there is twists and turns, there is secret identities, and a lot comes out. I will just put it as simple as this. Nikki J. Summers is an amazing author. I started reading her in 2021. I fell in love with almost all of her books. I haven't read the first 2 books she ever wrote because she had told me not to, because they're old writing. But I've read every book since then. This whole shelf right here is for Nikki. I own all of her books that have been printed. I have multiple copies of some of them because she does discreet covers. So anytime you hear me talk about her, I will simply just say that I love her writing. I forget that I'm reading a book. I normally read them in one sitting. But I will say this about reading this book for a second time, is that I cried. The second time around, I cried at a couple of spots, which I didn't cry the first time. So I guess that means I was invested even more the second time around. But I love this story. I rated it a 5. My wife loved this story. This is her favorite one out of the whole series. All of her books are on Kindle Unlimited. I will probably be making a lot of videos about them. So yes, go read them. Alright, we finally come to the end. That was all 21 or 22 books. I'm not sure exactly how many. All the books that I read this month and my thoughts about them. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you for watching. I know it was a really long one and I apologize. I will be making weekly reading wrap-ups instead of monthly from going on because it is so long, but this is why I created the channel. I wanted to sit and talk to you, to this camera, to anybody watching about the books that I read. I want to tell you a little bit about them because any other wrap-up video I see or review, it's, you know, they hold up the book and they're like, I read this and I rated it a 5-star, then they put it down. That doesn't tell me much. I need to know a little bit about the book. Tell me your thoughts on the books, and that's how I add books to my TBR there. That's what I'm trying to say. It is hot where I live. My audio's messed up, so I'm going to cut this video here. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, leave a like. If you see a book you like and you need some more information about it, or you just want to talk books, comment below. I will reply. And if this is the content is what you like and you want to know more and you want to see more, hit subscribe. Thank you, and I will talk to you later, and I hope that you have a lovely day wherever you are in the world. Bye.